From Nashville, Tennessee, this is Mysterious Matters for those who dare to think. And welcome back to the program, everybody. This evening we have on David J. Brown. And David will be coming on to share with us his insight into the world of lucid dreaming. And David does have a book out titled Dreaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. And folks, before we get to the show, I want to say that I do not condone, I do not recommend psychedelics or any illegal substance to try and achieve a lucidity in your sleep. There are many natural ways you can do that, and I just want to be sure that you are aware you do not need, and it certainly is not legal for you to use psychedelics. But if after listening to this program you are interested in reading more about dreaming wide awake from our guest, David J. Brown, you can go to mysteriousmatters.com/wideawake. That is mysteriousmatters.com/wideawake. And without further ado, David, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Bob. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you here with us. What was it that inspired you or brought you toward the path of lucid dreaming? Did you have an experience, or were you just reading up on it and wondering how to achieve it?
Well, I had my first lucid dream when I was around 16 years old, so it was quite a while ago. It happened to me soon after I had a shamanic experience, a psychedelic experience with LSD. Around 2 days later, I found myself just spontaneously having a lucid dream. And a couple of years after having that experience, I read about it in one of Carlos Castaneda's books called Journey to Ixtlan. And then a couple of years after that, I met Stephen LaBerge, who is a Stanford researcher who was one of the people who helped to make lucid dreaming a science. I interviewed Stephen for my book, Mavericks of the Mind, and my interactions with him really sparked my interest and got me learning that there were techniques that you can do to help improve your skills as a lucid dreamer. So it was through my interactions with Stephen LaBerge and having them happen to me spontaneously that I got on the path to cultivating my techniques to improve the ability.
Now, I know you mentioned LSD, psychedelics, but do you need to use psychedelics, LSD, etc., or could you use something that's over-the-counter, such as supplements?
Oh, well, let me just say, you don't need to do any drug or any substance at all to have lucid dreams. Lucid dreaming could happen to anyone without it. It just happened to happen to me a couple of days after the psychedelic experience. And I brought that up intentionally because that is part of the subject of my book, to try to look at the parallels between psychedelic experiences and lucid dreaming, because no one had really looked at that. And lucid dreaming is a very important part of shamanic healing traditions around the world. So I thought this was a very important connection to explore in my work. And that's one of the things that I, explore quite a bit. But it is most certainly not necessary. One can have a lucid dream, just completely spontaneously. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if a good percentage of your listening audience had a lucid dream tonight, just from hearing about it and speaking about it and thinking about it. People tend to have lucid dreams, and there also are over-the-counter herbs and things that actually do help with enhancing dreaming. There's something called the Mexican dream herb and the African dream herb that are available over the counter. You can get them in many health food stores or online, and many people report that they will enhance dream recall and the vividness of people's dreams, as well as sometimes increasing lucid dreaming.
Could you give us some details as far as what are the differences between a psychedelic dream state and a lucid dream state?
I'm not sure what you mean by a psychedelic dream state and a lucid dream state.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've never used drugs. I don't know what happens when you get psychedelic. Take LSD. For all I know, this is going to be my luck. I take LSD and I'm going to start seeing 6-foot penguins dancing around. Say, hey, look at me. I'm naked, That's what's going to happen to me if I start taking it.
Oh, it's most certainly certainly not for everyone, and certainly if someone has any reservation, I certainly don't encourage anyone to break the law or do anything. I'm just talking about my own experience and the experience of other people. So, but there are actually quite a bit of similarities between a psychedelic state of consciousness and a lucid dream state, and that's one of the things I really explore in my book. As I mentioned, many people have lucid dreams spontaneously soon after doing a psychedelic, but there's an interesting similarity in the brain states when people do brain scans of people who are under the influence of psilocybin and people who are dreaming. Many of the same areas of the brain are activated. So it's so on the physiological level, on the level of just the brain, there's quite a few similarities, and I explore quite a few more. The state of consciousness that people are in when they're in a lucid dream state, colors seem enhanced. Your sense of sound is enhanced. Everything is you're in a much more sensitive state of consciousness, and that's also very similar to what people experience with psychedelics.
I actually read your book. I got to, I don't remember what page it was, but somewhere around in your book, I remember, and it was really interesting.
Thank you.
You mentioned where our brain state while awake was at a certain frequency, I believe it was, but while we are in a lucid dream state, we're actually operating at a much higher frequency. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And when I say frequency, I want to just clarify what I really mean is brain waves. Your brain is constantly producing waves, that are at a certain frequency, and they're called alpha, beta, theta, and delta waves, and they vibrate within a certain range. And what's most interesting, and what I was referring to in that quote that you just quoted me as, was that the range that the brain waves go into during a lucid dream is actually higher. In other words, higher in the sense that it's faster, more frequent. A faster brainwave is happening when people are in lucid dreaming states than any other brain state, actually. There's no other brain state that produces such high, what are called gamma waves. Gamma waves in a specific area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. And when gamma waves are produced in the prefrontal cortex, while people are asleep, they tend to report lucid dreaming. And that's the only time that people experience brain waves that are vibrating that quickly in the brain.
Mm-hmm. I used to be a computer technician. I worked on computers, support the computers, whatever. I even worked for Apple for 2 years. What it came to my mind was the central processing unit of a computer. When you were discussing how our brain operated at certain hertz or megahertz, but when it's working at a certain frequency, in this lucid dream state, we're actually operating at a higher processing speed, then it actually seems like we are more powerful while sleeping.
Well, maybe so. I mean, I speculate about that. It's possible. Nobody really has ever correlated, the speed of your brain waves with intelligence. Mm-hmm. And, in fact, some people say that, having slower brain waves, people tend to make creative leaps or, creative inspiration or creative associations tend to be made when people are in the alpha state, which is usually like slightly slower than the brain state you and I are in right now, which is beta, where we're kind of going pretty fast and pretty rapid. And when people sort of slow down, sometimes they actually have more creative ideas. So I'm not so sure if just the speed of thought or the speed of, brain vibrations correlates with intelligence, but I think in many cases it probably does. And probably does in many cases. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it certainly does seem like that way when you're in a lucid dream. People often have spiritual or mystical experiences, or sometimes experiences that are psychic, where they sometimes feel like they can gain access to knowledge that they normally wouldn't have access to. So what you're saying does actually ring true to me on some levels, that there are, that these very, very rapid, fast frequency brain states that we encounter when we're lucid dreaming may actually be a higher form of intelligence.
There have been some shows that I've done about dreaming, about the afterlife, etc. But one thing that usually comes up is, how do we know that we're not dreaming right now? How do we know we are actually awake?
Well, Well, that's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful question. I mean, I think on some level we are dreaming right now. In some level, we're dreaming in the sense that we're creating a model of reality in our minds, and we're interacting with the model and not reality itself. So in that sense, reality is a dream. But I think you mean more, how can we tell the difference between a dream state and a waking state? And asking yourself, getting into the habit of asking yourself that question, the question you just asked, how do I know I'm not dreaming right now? Getting into the habit of asking yourself the question, am I dreaming right now? And then sincerely answering that question by actually taking what we call a reality test. So the way what you do is get into the habit of asking yourself the question, am I dreaming right now? And then what you do is one of two things. Try looking at a piece of paper with words written on it. Memorize what the words say, look away, and look back. When you're in a dream, what will happen is the words will almost always change into other words. So if that happens to you, you know that you're dreaming and you're not in your waking state. In this state of consciousness, if you look at something written, and I'm doing it right now as I'm speaking to you, the words are staying constant. They're not moving. They're not changing. So this to me is an indication that I'm in the waking state right now. Another good test is to hold your nostrils closed, pinch your nostrils closed. And, of course, you won't be able to breathe through your nose if your nostrils are pinched in your waking state. But you'll find that when you're dreaming, you'll have no problem at all doing this. There's some kind of glitch in the dream matrix that allows you to breathe through your nose with your nostrils pinched. So if you get into the habit of asking yourself those questions, am I dreaming right now, and then going through a reality test and actually, determining whether or not you're dreaming, that's how you'll not only determine the difference between a lucid dream state and a dreaming state, but that's also how you'll increase the frequency of lucid dreams that you start having.
Have there ever been any research or any pieces of evidence, stories that you might have heard of, where a person was sick, a person might have had an illness, cancer, or something, and they went into a lucid dream state to find out what's going on with them, and somehow they came back and they're cured of it? Yes.
There are actually many, many cases like this. I have a whole chapter in my book on lucid dreaming and healing. Unfortunately, there haven't really been any scientific studies on this. There was one case study published in a psychology journal, and I think that was the closest to a scientific study that's been done. But there are numerous anecdotes, many, many reported cases in the literature. One of the ones that springs to mind as you're speaking is I describe in my book a case of somebody who had a very severe infection in their tonsils, and during the lucid dream went up to a mirror and imagined a kind of glowing, healing, white light around their neck, an area where their tonsils were, and imagined that area was healing and that the infection was leaving. And when they woke up, they said that around 90% or 95% of the infection was gone. So it happened very quickly. So that's one case of someone who used lucid dreaming as a mode to healing. I describe a few other cases in my book. People seem to also be able to do it remotely. I describe a case of someone who helps to heal somebody else who's having a problem with their leg in a lucid dream. So it may be that the healing capacity actually is, and then psychic abilities can sometimes mix. It's a fertile area to explore. I would love to see, scientific research in this area. There's also, interesting evidence that lucid dreaming can be used to help heal psychological traumas. Not so much physical illness or disease, but it can be helpful in dealing with traumas from childhood or psychological distress or some type of ugly imprint that we got when we were younger. There's quite a few cases of people reporting healings in that respect as well. So that's why it's been used for a long time in shamanic healing traditions around the world.
That actually makes a lot of sense, because if a person's psyche has been locked away, such as through child abuse. I actually knew a little girl. She was abused by her mother's husband at that time. I knew them way before that even happened. Pretty much I raised her for the first 7 years of her life, and she was abused, and I guess just weeks after her 20th birthday, she killed herself.
Oh my goodness.
I would have to imagine if someone could get into a lucid dream state, they could heal themselves. They can go into their psyche, find out whatever they need to work out, and heal themselves.
Oh, I think absolutely so. I'll tell you one of the techniques that I learned from Robert Wagner that I've utilized in my lucid dreaming that would be very useful for someone who's looking to lucid dreaming as a mode for healing is to now, this is a really amazing technique. I mean, it's incredible when you're in a lucid dream to be able to interact with the world around you, to be able to talk to the different dream characters, and to fly through the air and to go through walls and to make anything appear. And all that stuff is really great fun and fascinating. But I think that the most important thing that one can learn to do in a lucid dream, and this can really be used to help with healing, is to get into a dialogue with the dream itself. In other words, to ignore all the dream characters, ignore the dream environment, and just raise your head to the sky and just start talking to the dream. Just start talking to the dream environment. Ask it questions. Ask it, what happened to me when I was younger? How can I help to heal myself? Questions like that. And you'll find more often than not that the dream responds. And who is it that's responding? God, it's a mystery. I just, in my book, I explore and speculate who it could be. Is it your unconscious mind? Is it, some kind of spirit talking to you? Is it just the backside of your own brain? I just don't know. But whatever the spirit or the mind is that's orchestrating the dream, you can dialogue with it. You can talk to it, and it will talk back to you, and it knows you better than you know yourself. It is absolutely a miracle in action. And this, I think, is one of the best ways for people to learn how to heal themselves, is to learn to get into a dialogue with the spirit that's orchestrating the dream and to talk to the dream. And, the dream spirit has this ability to remember everything that you've ever gone through, to answer all your questions, and maybe even questions that you don't even know you know. So that's a technique that I found to be tremendously successful in terms of healing myself from traumas from childhood, which I discuss in my book as well.
That almost seems as though when you enter in through a lucid dream state and you're able to communicate with a being, well, whatever it is, it almost sounds like a guardian angel.
Yeah, that's one of the ways people look at it. There's different types of being. What I was talking specifically about a moment ago was talking to the spirit of the dream itself, the dream spirit. But you could also just interact with the different characters in the dreams. And you'll find that they basically come in three basic types. A lot of the people that you will talk to in a lucid dream, the characters that you start to interact with, are kind of dumb and mechanical and don't seem to have much conscious intention or much intelligence. And then you'll encounter a certain percentage of characters in your dreams that seem to be every bit as intelligent as you. And they seem to have every bit as much of conscious intention as you. And it is really, really mind-boggling to get into a conversation with them and to question, whether or not these people really exist. I mean, is this a part of your own mind that's become independently conscious? Is it another realm where there are other beings that, that are also intelligent? Is it other dreamers that you can interact with? I mean, that's mysterious enough. But then even more mysterious than that is the fact that sometimes you will encounter beings or characters in your dreams that are like guardian angels, that are like these, what we call the wise beings, or beings that really know you better than you know yourself. And they could share all kinds of knowledge with you about yourself and about your childhood and about the spiritual nature of the universe and all kinds of secrets of existence. I mean, it's amazing the kind of things that can be dialogued with when you talk to one of these wise beings. And who or what they are is such an incredible mystery. But like I say, when you talk to them, you will be surprised to discover that they seem to know us better than we know ourselves.
Mm-hmm. I had mentioned once before, how do we know that we're awake? There are times, it hasn't happened to me in years, but there were times I'd go to sleep and I would have these dreams that were so realistic, I could have sworn I was actually there. And when I woke up, I was thinking, where am I? But I was in my bedroom and I didn't recognize it at that moment that I was in my bedroom. I was thinking that I still belonged on that other side. So it almost seems as though we are entering through a alternate dimensional life of sorts sometimes.
Yeah, it seems that way sometimes, doesn't it? I mean, it's it is uncanny when you become lucid in a dream and you just want to sit down and just explore the details. I mean, to pick up a book in a dream and to look at it. And you'll see that every detail is there. I mean, you can hold any object in your hand. You can hold a pencil and look at it from every angle and see it doesn't look any different than the way a pencil looks in your waking reality. The way that reality is replicated in a lucid dream is uncanny. Now, what you're kind of getting at, I think, in your most recent comment was that maybe they're not models, maybe they're not replications of reality. Maybe they really are portals into other realities. And there's a lot of cultures that believe this. I mean, there's many cultures that don't dismiss dreaming the way we do in the West. Here in the West, it's very common for a mother to say to her child, wake up from a nightmare, "Oh, honey, that was just a dream, just a dream." Just to try to dismiss the reality of it. It's not real, it's just your imagination. And we get kind of programmed into thinking that, and that may not be the case. There are many other cultures that take dreaming to be, something that you're really doing in a different parallel universe or a different level of reality. And I explore that in my book as well. I think there is, we certainly know from quantum physics that there could be, countless numbers of parallel universes, and maybe what we're exploring in our lucid dreams are different parallel universes. It's certainly not inconceivable to me to entertain these ideas and think that they might be possible.
Do you think that two people could actually share a lucid dream or share a dream, as in two separate individuals, whether they know each other or not, can enter in through each other's dream states?
Well, Bob, I think that's one of my favorite questions that you've asked. I do. I really do. I would love to see some scientific research done in this area. As you probably know, that's one of the themes in the popular movie Inception. They're able to enter into other people's dreams. When I was around 7 years old, I had a shared dream experience, not lucid dream, but a shared dream experience with my younger brother. We both had a remarkably similar and extremely unique dream about being in a flying saucer or a spaceship together with our grandmother, and our grandmother had birthday cake drenched in her hair, all kinds of really unique and idiosyncratic types of things that just didn't seem to be occurring by chance or anything that we could point to. So that happened to me when I was young. So that led me to believe that this really was possible. My partner and I have had many shared dreams. And at the set out to writing the book, we deliberately tried to have some shared lucid dreams. And we had a number of dreams where there was content. The content that we both experienced was very similar, and we both experienced a couple of dreams, lucid dreams, where we tried to find the other partner, and in the first couple of occasions of those, when we would find the other partner, they would react in the dream the way I described those unconscious characters earlier. In other words, we would just not seem to have much conscious intelligence, or be kind of like a puppet or like a robot, very mechanical in our responses, and that's been the case with many people who report trying to share lucid dreams. And the idea is that the reason this happens, many people believe, is because only one of the partners is actually lucid, and the other one is in their dream state, but is in a more unconscious state and is not lucid. So it's very rare that people are ever in that state lucid together. However, it did happen, I believe. I believe it did happen to me and my girlfriend. One morning, this is how it happened. It didn't happen that long ago. It was only a few months ago, as a matter of fact. But this is what happened. We were both had a series of lucid dreams that morning and sleep paralysis. And I found myself in a lucid dream and immediately went looking for her. And And I found myself in our bedroom. There she was, asleep in her usual spot on the bed. And I went over to her and I started shaking her awake. And I went, Becca, we're having a lucid dream right now. Wake up. We're having a lucid dream right now. And she looks at me, groggily, and she goes, no, we're not, right? And I said, no, try breathing through your nose. Try breathing through your nose, and you'll see. And she tries breathing through her closed nostrils, and she can't do it. She goes, oh my God, she can't do it rather. And she's like, oh my God, you're right. We're dreaming right now. And then just a few seconds later, I woke up. And then when she woke up a few minutes later, this was what she remembered. She remembered being in a lucid dream and then experiencing what we call a false awakening. A false awakening is when you think you wake up from the dream and you find yourself back in bed, but in fact you're actually still dreaming. You're just dreaming that you woken up. And it's actually very common when people lucid dream to have a false awakening. And she was having a lucid dream and believed that she had a false awakening, and there I was in bed with her saying, Becca, we're having a lucid dream right now. And she recalls me telling her to try breathing through her nostrils and to try that, which she did, and was like, oh my God, you're right, we're having a lucid dream right now. And a few seconds later, she woke up. And that was the closest, I believe, that we ever came to actually having a shared lucid dream. But we both have. I mean, I get chills talking about it. It seems so real. So it really was remarkable. I think if people who are very closely bonded, and if they really practice this, really keep trying, I think eventually you will have shared dreams and shared lucid dreams.
That is simply amazing. I don't know if I've ever had a lucid dream. I have had false awakenings before. I actually discussed this with Robert Wagner when he was on the show. I think it was last year. I was sleeping on the couch upstairs. I started hearing noises. I started seeing a ball moving by itself and got up moving toward it. And then the next thing I knew, I was back on the couch again. I got back up, started moving toward it. I was back on the couch again. And then I actually saw an entity, almost like a ghost or whatever. But my arm, it caught my attention because it almost looked like it was water or some kind of just my spirit was moving up and down, but not my physical arm. And then at that point, I realized, you know what, I'm still asleep, and I woke right up.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, it sounds like you were in the process of sleep paralysis, maybe. We can talk a little bit about that. That's a very common experience that people have when they're trying to lucid dream a lot, is to find themselves in a state of consciousness where their body is completely paralyzed, and they're basically because it's still asleep, and their minds are fully awake. It's not uncommon for people to experience this sometimes in the morning, to wake up and to suddenly feel like you can't move your body. Our bodies become paralyzed when we go to sleep, and especially when we dream, so that we don't act out the behaviors in our dreams and start banging into the walls and the furniture. There actually are some people who don't have this type of sleep paralysis inhibition and have to sleep in rooms that are just with no sharp corners and everything soft, because they continuously act out the behaviors in their dreams. When you have an experience with sleep paralysis, where your body remains in that state of paralysis, where you can't move, where it feels like you're magnetized to the bed, or your limbs are just so heavy that you can't lift them, it's often a very, very frightening experience for people, because they, first of all, don't understand why they're paralyzed, and then second of all, there's often frightening dream imagery that will sometimes enter into the picture. Like, people often will see a dark figure walking towards them, that looks threatening in some way, or someone trying to strangle them or hurt them or sit on their chest is very, very common. So they're often very scary experiences, sleep paralysis rather, but it's also very common and usually only lasts for a few seconds. Now, what's really interesting, I think, is to learn to not be frightened of sleep paralysis when it happens, to learn to embrace it, because you can use sleep paralysis as a launching pad for lucid dreams. So if you find yourself in this state again, where you say, you try to move your arm, and your physical arm doesn't move, but you feel like a sort of ghostly appendage, like something does move. It's not your physical arm, but there's something moving.
Oh, I saw it.
And you saw it too. So what you saw and felt moving was like your dream body, or your astral body, some people call, or whatever the word you want to use. And if you focus your attention on identifying with that ghostly appendage instead of your physical arm, you'll find that you can switch your sense of identity from your physical body that you can't move to the dream body or astral body that you then have complete free movement with. And once there'll be sort of a sort of hybrid state of consciousness where you'll feel a little bit like you're both for a while, and then you'll completely identify with the dream body, and off you are into either an out-of-body experience or a lucid dream, or a trip into the portal of another universe, however you want to classify the experience, but you'll certainly be liberated from your physical body and able to explore other realms.
Yes, that definitely freaked me out, because I'm not going to say I was paralyzed from sleep, because it was like I was caught in a loop for maybe 5 or 6 different times, and then eventually I saw that arm that was almost like a spiritual arm, and then I realized, you know what, I must be sleeping, so I woke myself up that way. And that was the freakish thing I've ever seen in my life as far as my dreams go. And let me tell you, I've seen demons. I have all sorts of weird dreams.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Well, I think everybody has. By definition, dreams are weird. For everybody, they're generally weird. Most people just don't remember them, usually. But when you remember your dreams, I think almost most people will find that they're pretty damn weird. My dreams are pretty weird too.
And you know what? Those are the great ones. I actually love to write, and most of the material I write come from my dreams.
Yes, isn't it a tremendous source for creativity, imagination? Dreams are probably the best source of creative inspiration there is.
Oh, yes, they certainly are. They certainly are. When a person's in a dream state, whether it's lucid or otherwise, are they able, or even with you, have you ever been able to communicate or witness a loved one that had passed over that might be wanting to give you a message?
Well, that's an interesting question. I personally haven't experienced, I wouldn't take that back. Not a particular message. I have had experiences in lucid dreams where I encountered people who I was close with who passed away. Oscar Janiger, a psychiatrist who I was my mentor, colleague, one of my best friends, someone who I loved very dearly. A few months after he passed away, I had a lucid dream where I was walking around this beautiful, natural festival kind of area, and he was showing me that this was where he now lived, that this was not heaven, but it was like another realm, and where he had, his consciousness had migrated to, and he was explaining this to me, and it felt incredibly real. I don't know if it was, of course, but it really felt like I had made contact with him, and it felt like he was really showing me the world that he was presently living in. My girlfriend also had a lucid dream where she encountered her father, who passed away a couple of years previously, and they played pool together, and they had this kind of absolutely charming interaction together, and she left the experience feeling like it was really him. So I think it really is possible. Patricia Garfield wrote a great book about dreams that people connect with loved ones, departed loved ones, and I found it tremendously fascinating, and draw from it a little bit in my book. One of my favorite little anecdotes that she had in the book was a story about someone who encountered their uncle who had just passed away in a dream, and they were like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? How can you be here? You're dead. And her uncle says to her, and he's just laughing and joking around and dancing and everything, just like he was in real life. And the girl is just amazed. She's like, how can you be doing this? You're no longer alive. And the uncle says to her, he goes, honey, when you die, you lose your body, not your sense of humor. So, yeah, I do think it's possible. I really do. So I've had those little experiences, and my girlfriend has, and some other people talk about their experiences in my book, and others as well.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome if someone who has been murdered would be able to come back to a loved one and show them what happened. Do you know of any stories like that where a parent or someone had lost a child and the child came to them and gave them detailed information in a dream state?
Wow, Bob. I wish I did. I don't know of any stories like that. That would be remarkable. I think that is a great idea for a screenplay. Seriously.
Well, let's work on it.
Yeah, that's like a great idea. So that would be a great movie.
Yeah.
But no, I wish I did. It sort of rings like a slight bell, as though I have heard something, but I can't think of any examples of anything like that. I mean,
the world is a mysterious place. I mean, even our minds, our consciousness, it's all strange, and we don't understand how any of it works. We have theories, but we don't really know. I mean, something like that could be possible.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I was always so shocked when I was in graduate school that, the professors, that I worked with in the neuroscience department were, I'm not kidding you when I tell you they were convinced that there was almost no mystery left in the world, that that science had figured most all of it out, and 95% of it out, and just another couple of years and we'll get the other 5%, and it'll all be figured out soon. I swear that was their attitude about all this, and me, and sounds like you. We've been exposed to so much mystery. It seems like it's the other way around. The universe is mostly mystery, and maybe we know the tiniest, little teeny weeny fraction of what's going on, and even that's questionable. So we're immersed in mystery. We have no idea how we got here, what's going on, where we're going, what any of this all is, where we go when we die. It is just, what dreams are. I mean, this is just one big mystery wrapped in a puzzle, mapped in a mystery, wrapped in another enigma. It's just crazy, huh?
Let's go back to the lucid dreaming. What do you think the actual purpose is of lucid dreaming? Because not everybody does it. Everybody can do it, but it doesn't always happen. What's the purpose of lucid dreaming?
Well, I guess one would have to ask the question, what's the purpose of dreaming? And, and we don't even know what the purpose of sleep is, to be honest.
True.
We know it has, restorative qualities. Some of the theories about, what do dreams function for? Some of the theories are that it helps to consolidate memories in the brain, that all the memories that you have during the day, that when you're dreaming, the memories are sort of sorted through, and some are discarded, and some are incorporated into long-term storage. And some people think that part of the function of dreaming is to provide a avenue for the unconscious parts of our mind to communicate with the conscious part of our mind, or parts of our mind. There's some neuroscientists think that dreams don't have any meaning, that they're just random neural firings in the brain, and that our brains create, just chaotic stories out of the random firings while we're sleeping. I tend to think that the two purposes that I originally said, having to do with memory consolidation and having to do with transferring information from our unconscious to our conscious minds, are probably the two best candidates for the function of dreaming. And as to the function of lucid dreaming can then serve a number of functions. It can help to extend the natural function of dreaming to help move information from our unconscious minds to our conscious minds by being able to consciously interact with the unconscious, by being able to ask it questions, by being able to walk up to a dream character and say, what do you mean? What do you represent? Actually asking them what they symbolize in the process, so you can get, far more insight into your unconscious mind than you would in retrospect, reflecting on the dream afterwards. So that's one thing. It can certainly be used, as we mentioned earlier, for healing from injuries, for healing from trauma, from healing from illness. There's probably also the ability to practice, to use lucid dreaming as a way to train. If you want to practice public speaking, or you want to practice your martial arts, or or your hula hooping skills, or your ballet, or whatever it is that you're practicing, or that sort of thing. It's an amazing, gives an amazing platform for being able to experiment with these different types of techniques in other states of consciousness, and we find that there is carryover. They've done scientific studies that show that when people practice, for example, they practiced flipping quarters across the room into a cup, and they counted how many times they got them in the cup. Before and after, two groups. One group did lucid dreaming, one group didn't. The group that did lucid dreaming found that they got better at it. So actually practicing something in a lucid dream has been shown scientifically to actually improve and increase the skill. Then lucid dreaming can be used just purely for fun. I mean, wow. I mean, what could be more amazing than, flying and going underwater, traveling to other planets, going through walls, having sex with your ideal lover. I mean, you name it. You just, anything you can imagine, you can do in a lucid dream state. So, that's another purpose. It's just pure fantasy fulfillment. And then if you look beyond, these things, then there's, if you, lucid dream for years, almost everybody really gets into that process I was describing earlier, where you start dialoguing with the dream spirit itself, and you can start to have out-of-body experiences, and you can start to have dream experiences where you go completely beyond waking and dreaming in the dream state to what people call the void, which is a state of consciousness that's beyond waking and dreaming and beyond physical reality. And that is, a way to help advance spiritually and to increase your spiritual awareness. So it's been lucid dreaming has been incorporated as a part of Tibetan Buddhism for thousands of years because of its ability to help cultivate spiritual awareness and higher states of spiritual consciousness. So it has a wide spectrum. It spans a wide spectrum of all the different things that that can be done. I mean, really, it's your imagination is the only limit as to what can be done with a lucid dream.
Are you able to completely control your lucid dream, as in, say, if I wanted to get into lucid dreaming, and every single one that I did, I wanted it to be a brand new episode of Star Trek, and I was Captain Kirk. Could I do that?
You can influence the dream. You can't control it. No one can truly. It's a fallacy to believe that lucid dreaming is an ability to control the dream. No one has that kind of power. It's more like the ability to influence the dream. I think Robert Wagner used the analogy of it's like you're like a sailor on a boat out at sea, and you can influence where you sail and the direction, but you really can't control the sea. You certainly can influence it. There are ways to do it. One of the tricks that I like for being able to create the type of lucid dream environment that you want to be in is when you find yourself in a lucid dream is to close your eyes and stretch out your arms, and then start spinning around in circles. And in that process of spinning around like a whirling dervish, the idea is to imagine the type of dream environment that you want to find yourself in, that you want to be in. If you want to be on the Star Trek Enterprise, you imagine the Star Trek Enterprise while you're spinning around in a circle, and then you'll find that when you open your eyes, your dream eyes, more often than not, you'll find yourself in an environment that resembles what you were imagining. So that's one way of being able to utilize your imagination to help not control, but influence the lucid dreams that you find yourself in. So there are many tricks and techniques for being able to influence the dream. But you'll still find that there's always going to be surprises. There's always going to be elements outside your control. And to be honest, that's really what all the fun is about. It's the mystery of it. If you were able to control every element of it, it really wouldn't be that much fun. It's the fact that it can surprise you, that it'll do things that you just never imagine. And, that it seems to have a spirit and an intelligence all its own.
Yeah. I know you mentioned it just now, and you also mentioned it in your book where you can also have these lucid dreams of having sexual encounters. It would be so weird if you decided you wanted to make out with this one woman, and at first she's normal, and then in the middle of whatever, she grows like 7 heads, 7 boobs, or whatever else, Like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is weird. I've experimented with that in a number of lucid dreams, of course. I mean, almost everybody does as one of the first things that you do. Usually the first thing is flying, and the second thing is try to have sex with the dream characters. And I found in most cases that it was kind of disappointing that there was just certain elements that were really missing from the experience. It just didn't feel solid. It didn't, seem to just, there was some kind of element to it that didn't seem to have the full sensation.
And I'm sure your girlfriend appreciated that.
Yeah, so we've been trying to have sex together in a lucid dream. That's one of our goals, is to eventually have sex together in a lucid dream. But I think there's just reduced physical sensation in a lucid dream. You find there are certain senses that become less enhanced. Your sense of sight is more enhanced, and your sense of sound is usually more enhanced. But your sense of feeling, physical sensation, is usually slightly reduced, and your sense of smell and taste is often somewhat reduced as well. So that's why my experiences have been rather disappointing. But there are other people who say that they've had sexual experiences and even orgasms in lucid dreams that rival those of in the waking world, their experiences in the waking world. I think that they've been more reported from women than men for some reason. Don't know why, but I think more women have reported that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I know in your book you mentioned that you actually did test out some technologies for lucid dreaming, such as, I guess it was the REM Dreamer and some other things. What did you think of those?
Yeah, interesting. I have a whole chapter on exploring different electronic technologies in my book. This was originally something that was started by Stanford dream researcher Stephen LaBerge, who I mentioned earlier, who's one of the people who got me interested in lucid dreaming. He developed something called the Dream Light, and what this is a device that has these little goggles that you wear, or like eye shades that have motion detectors in them that can detect when you're in REM sleep, the rapid eye movement phase of sleep, which is most closely associated with dreaming. And when in this state, your eyes literally move back and forth very quickly under your eyelids, and this can detect it. And the idea behind this machine is that once it detects you're in REM sleep, it will start to flash a little light behind your eyes, a pretty dim light, not very bright light. It's dim so that it's not enough to wake you up, but it's enough to provide a kind of sensory stimulus that gets incorporated into the dream. So in many cases, if you're still dreaming, what will happen is you'll start to see something flashing in your dream. For some people, this takes the form of like seeing police lights, or to see something twinkling, or something that's shining and glistening. In my case, that was what I've seen. Things start shining and glistening in these like very metallic waves, and that then can become what people call a dream sign, kind of like when I said earlier, you should get into the habit of testing your reality, asking yourself, am I dreaming right now, and then taking a test, because every so often you'll find yourself taking the test, and you'll be like, wow, I guess I am dreaming right now, and you'll realize in the dream that you're dreaming. So the electronic technologies can provide a stimulus that can allow people to recognize they're dreaming in the dream. And what I utilized in my book was something called a REM Dreamer, which is basically a copy of what Stephen LaBerge had created. And I actually had some success with it. I found it a little bulky to sleep with, and it wasn't that comfortable. But I did find that it increased my frequency of lucid dreams, and I did have a number of lucid dreams with it. But even more interesting than that, those machines are going to be completely obsolete in really just a few months. I mean, they basically already are, because there is a group of researchers at the Max Planck Institute in Germany who discovered a way to lucid dream on command. If you recall earlier in this conversation, I discussed how gamma waves in the prefrontal cortex, when people are experiencing gamma waves, those very, very fast brain waves in the area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, they will almost always have or report lucid dreaming during that time. And there was a team that actually started using something called transcranial electrical brain stimulation. And this is actually inducing electrical stimulation directly from the scalp into the brain without any type of electrodes or anything. They do it in a non way that doesn't interfere. And they can directly stimulate specific brain regions in this process, and they're able to stimulate the prefrontal cortex when people are sleeping, when they're in REM sleep, and stimulate that area so it starts producing gamma waves. Now, when people are asleep, dreaming, and this area of the brain's stimulated, they almost always report lucid dreaming. I think like 80% of the time or something, very high figure like that. So, believe it or not, of course, there's now a Kickstarter is now a startup company that's already taking advantage of this, and they're building a little device right now that won't be available until April, the first ones. But actually a little type of device that you wear. I haven't tried it yet, but I am looking very, very forward to trying it. And this is something that will deliver transcranial stimulation directly through the scalp to the brain, to the prefrontal cortex, allowing people to stimulate their prefrontal cortex when they're in REM sleep. And this seems like a non-interfering way of being able to lucid dream on command. And we are now really just a few months away from this, and just be a few $100s to purchase one of these things. And won't that be extraordinary to have this ability, and then to be able to, then we'll be able to scientifically test for shared dreaming and all kinds of other things, because lucid dreaming will become so easy and such an easily replicable technique. So we're all looking forward to that, and it should be along very, very soon.
Yes. I remember back in the late 90s, I used to listen to Coast AM with Art Bell. There used to be a commercial, an infomercial or whatever for, I don't know if it was Nova Dreamer or REM Dreamer, it was something. It was a lucid dreaming kit, and I always wondered, do those things work? Because at that point, I think they were like $500, $600, and it just seemed like a ridiculous amount of money to be spending on something that I was not sure was even going to work. But from everything you're telling me, that those things can work.
Yeah, probably what they had on Coast to Coast was the Nova Dreamer. That probably was it, because I discussed that in my book. That was actually modeled after Stephen LaBerge's design as well. And that is very similar to the REM Dreamer that I described. I think it does work. I think it really can increase your number of lucid dreams. However, like I said, it's not very comfortable to wear, and it does require a fair amount of being comfortable with electronic technology. I mean, having little circuit boards right in front of your eyes. I mean, it's really not for everyone, because they haven't developed it in such a way where it's completely that comfortable and that easy for everyone to use. But if you're determined, if you are truly determined to lucid dream, and if you think that this is something that can probably help you, then it probably can. It probably can. But but for someone who's just casually saying it's just going to help me lucid dream and doesn't want to put in the time and effort to practicing the other techniques, to increase the frequency of lucid dreaming, then it probably would be a waste of money.
Do you want to give us some information on some of your psychedelic usage, or is that something that you just don't want to discuss as far as what it's done, how it's affected you? Did it make you more creative, open up your mind, etc.?
Oh, I'm happy to talk about my experience with psychedelics. I don't use them anymore, but I did when I was younger, and I attribute much of my creativity, much of my heightened awareness, the ideas for many of my books, overcoming traumas. I attribute much of this to my use of psychedelics when I was younger. I wrote my first book under the influence of LSD, Brainchild. My experiences I went down to Peru and did ayahuasca down there. The ayahuasca is an ancient brew that's made from the different plants down in different plant mixtures down in the Amazon, and produces a very, very powerful, sometimes out-of-body type experience that's very dreamlike. And during those experiences, I was able to heal from traumas when I experienced when I was younger. I've had experiences with psychedelics that led to psychic, experiences, telepathy, shared dream content with people, shared imagery. I feel like it's helped to make me a more compassionate person. I feel like it's increased my sensitivity. I think probably most importantly, what psychedelics have done for me and what they do for people is that they help to make people more ecologically aware. In other words, more aware of their environment, more aware of how we're affecting the biosphere. Ayahuasca and magic mushrooms specifically seem to really help to do this, and I think that this is so important because right now we're on a planet where we're really just sabotaging the biosphere. I mean, we're pouring so much pollution and toxins and heavy metals and just we're just with the global warming situation and the situation in the ocean and leaking radiation. I mean, we could be on the verge of extinction as a species and take many other species with us. So this is truly a crisis and truly a serious situation. And I think that psychedelics can be instrumental in helping to make people more ecologically aware overnight. Overnight, in one night. I know of nothing else that can transform people like that. It's like Scrooge in the Christmas Carol, where in just one night someone can change from being, a sort of nasty, cigar-smoking, polluting CEO, and the next day they want to, next day they're going to Burning Man and trying to save the rainforest. So, I mean, there really is dramatic transformations in people that really are for the good of all. So I feel like they've helped to make me more creative, helped to make me a more compassionate, more sensitive person, but most importantly, they've helped to make me and other people, I think, more ecologically aware.
I know some of my ancestors, the Native Americans, I have to believe they've done some of that themselves, because the things that you hear, the spirit walking, etc., that says psychedelic to me.
It suggests psychedelic to me, too. I mean, certainly there's been use of peyote among Native Americans in both North America and Central America, and certainly use of magic mushrooms among Native Americans in Central America and ayahuasca in South America. So there's certainly a long tradition of using psychedelic plants as part of different Native American shamanistic traditions.
Yes, and growing up, I didn't realize it at this point, but I was always in front of somebody who used these magic mushrooms all the time. I didn't realize it. Super Mario.
Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah,
he's a short guy. You give him the magic mushroom, he gets bigger and gets powers.
Yeah, well, a lot of people working on video games and working on computer codes were highly influenced by psychedelics. There's quite a few books written about the connection between what's going on in Silicon Valley and people's use of LSD. There's a strong connection. So it's not surprising that you find little winks like that throughout the culture and computer games and virtual reality and these different things, because so many of the computer programmers have experimented with different psychedelics.
Yeah, growing up, you just didn't realize that, but as you got older, you're like, I see what you did there. I see what that represents.
Yep.
Well, David, I've definitely appreciated this, my friend. Is there anything else you would like to share before we head out?
I think we really covered a wide range. This has really been a lot of great fun. So
yes. Do you have a website you'd like to share?
I do. My website is www.mavericksofthemind.com, and my new book is Dreaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics, which was just published by Inner Traditions, and it's available on Amazon, on the Inner Traditions website, and any fine bookstore by you. So thank you so much for this great interview, Bob. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a lot of fun as well. I've got one last question for you before we go. If time travel were real here and today, where would you go to and what would you do? Wow. Oh, my goodness. I got to think about that for a moment. Where would I go with access to, I would go back in time, and there's a number of people, I don't know if you know, but I've interviewed. One of my loves is to interview great minds. I've interviewed as many great minds as I possibly can, and I have 5 books of interviews, and I really wish
I could interview a lot of the people who have already passed on. So I think that if I was able to go back in time, I would love to go back in time and interview different people who have already passed on. Who would I like to interview most? Gosh, right now I'm going to say I'd love to go back. If I could go anywhere in time, I would love to go back into the past and interview Socrates. And that would, and given a second option, I'd love to go into the far future and see how the human species is going to evolve.
Could you do that through your mind as far as your dream state? Do you think time travel would be possible?
I certainly think it's possible, and I think that many people have reported interesting phenomena with times. One of the most interesting things I've heard about is, and my girlfriend included, is that some people experience what feels like whole days or whole weeks of time compressed into a single night. Somehow they can experience, when what dream time is just a few hours, they experience days or weeks or, longer amounts of time. I personally haven't experienced anything like that, and I personally haven't experimented with trying to time travel in my dream, but I do think theoretically it's possible, and I would be most curious to hear from people who try to explore these different states.
You heard that, ladies and gentlemen. If you've ever experienced anything like that, contact David. David J. Brown, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Bob. This has been a real pleasure. Let's do it again.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, was David J. Brown. And again, his book is Dreaming Wide Awake, Lucid Dreaming, Shamanic Healing, and Psychedelics. Well, ladies and gentlemen, until the next time we do come back together again, I bid you all a kind farewell.